The trauma nurse said, "The surgeon is Dr. Bennett." My mother's knees buckled. Not because the name meant something, because it meant everything. 5 years ago, my parents returned my wedding invitation unopened. My father blocked my number. My sister made sure they believed I had dropped out of medical school, run off with a stranger, and lied to them for months. None of that was true. But Vanessa was always the daughter they believed first, so I became a ghost while I was still alive. Now my sister was on a stretcher, internal bleeding, ruptured spleen, a highway crash that nearly killed her, and my parents were in the waiting room, demanding the best doctor in the hospital. I walked through the double doors in my surgical scrubs. My name was stitched above my heart. "Doctor," my father said, "tell me my daughter is alive." Then he saw my badge. Clara Bennett, MD, Chief of Trauma Surgery. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother grabbed his sleeve. Her knuckles went white. For 5 seconds, no one moved. I kept my voice calm. "Vanessa survived surgery. She's stable in the ICU. My mother whispered my name. I did not let her touch me. "You don't get to hold me now, Mom. You lost that right when you returned my wedding invitation unopened." My name is Clara Bennett. I am 32 years old, and the last time my parents called me their daughter before that morning was the night my sister decided she could not bear to lose the spotlight. We grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in a brick house with a maple tree out front and a dining room my mother saved for company. My father, Howard, supervised a regional shipping warehouse. My mother, Elaine, worked payroll for a school district. They were not rich, but they were proud in the way some families are proud when respectability is all they think they own. Vanessa was 3 years older than me and impossible to ignore. She knew how to enter a room. She laughed at the right volume, hugged the right aunt, complimented the right shoes, and made adults feel chosen. She did pageants as a child, theater in high school, student council, charity drives, church solos. Teachers said she had presence. My parents repeated that word like it was a degree. I had grades, quiet grades, consistent grades. The kind no one claps for at dinner because they expect them from the child who spends weekends with textbooks. I was not jealous of Vanessa at first. Children accept the weather in their homes before they understand climate. Vanessa was the sun. I was the lamp left on in another room. When I was 13, I won a county science competition with a project about wound healing in diabetic patients. I had spent 4 months reading medical journals I barely understood, and emailing a podiatrist who took pity on me and answered questions after office hours. The award ceremony was the same night as Vanessa's spring musical. My parents went to the musical. I stood on a school auditorium stage while another girl's father took pictures for me because I had no one in the audience. When I got home, my mother was still holding Vanessa's bouquet. "Second place," I said, showing my ribbon. My father glanced at it. "That's nice, Claire." He never asked what the project was. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself medicine would be bigger than a dining room, bigger than a house where applause always stopped before reaching me. When I got into Pacific Northwest College of Medicine at 22, something changed for one brief, dangerous month. The envelope arrived in April. I opened it at the kitchen table because my mother had called me in to help with tax forms, and the mail was beside her calculator. My father was home early. Vanessa was visiting from King of Prussia, where she worked in public relations for a hospital network, and told everyone she was basically in healthcare. I read the first line 3 times. "Congratulations." My father took the letter from my hand. "Medical school," he said slowly. My mother stood. "Oh my God," Vanessa smiled. I remember that smile clearly because it almost looked real until it reached her eyes and stopped. My father looked at me differently that night, not warmly exactly. Howard Bennett did not waste warmth, but directly. "Maybe you knew what you were doing after all," he said. It was not much. It was everything. My mother called her sister, my Aunt Miriam. She called 2 neighbors. She called the pastor's wife. Clara got into medical school. Can you believe it? For the first time, my name sounded like news worth sharing. Vanessa began calling me twice a week after that. "How's the planning going? Do you know your roommate yet? What city is the hospital system attached to? Are you nervous?" I thought she was trying to be my sister. That is the cruel part. I wanted her to be proud of me so badly that I mistook surveillance for care. I told her everything, my class schedule, my anatomy lab partner, my financial aid problems, my loneliness, my best friend's name. That best friend was Mara Torres. Mara grew up in foster homes outside Sacramento, and had the kind of humor that could make exhaustion feel survivable. We met the first week of medical school when I dropped a stack of flashcards in a lecture hall, and she helped me pick them up without making a joke about it. By December, we were studying together every night. By second year, we were roommates. By third year, she was the person I would have called family if the word had not hurt so much. Mara was diagnosed with acute leukemia in September of our third year. No parents came, no siblings. A former foster sister sent money for groceries but could not leave her job. Mara tried to make it sound manageable, as if chemotherapy were an inconvenient elective rotation. It was not manageable. She needed someone to sit with her during infusions, drive her home after procedures, track medications, argue with insurance, and hold the bowl when nausea hit faster than she could turn. I went to the student affairs office and requested a formal medical leave to serve as caregiver. 1 semester, documented, approved. My seat held for the spring. The dean signed the letter himself and told me, "You are doing something hard and honorable. Come back when you're ready." I called Vanessa that night because I still thought she was safe. "Mara is sick," I said, "really sick. I'm taking a semester leave. It's official. I'm going back in January." Vanessa's voice softened into syrup. "Clara, I'm so sorry. Don't tell Mom and Dad yet. They'll panic. Let me help you figure out how to say it. It's not a secret. I know. I just mean, let me handle them. You know how Dad gets." I did know. 3 nights later, my father called while I was sitting beside Mara's hospital bed. She was asleep, bald already, one hand curled around the blanket like a child's. "Your sister told us," he said. "No hello." "Told you what?" "Do not insult me." I stepped into the hallway. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "You dropped out. You're living with some man. You've been lying to us for months." For a second, the hospital corridor tilted. "No, I'm on approved leave. Mara has leukemia. I'm Hekagua. Vanessa said you would use the roommate as an excuse." "She what?" My mother came on the line, crying. "How could you do this to us, Clara, after everything we told people?" "Mom, listen to me. I can send you the paperwork. Call the dean. Call the school. I did not drop out." My father's voice returned, hard as a slammed door. "You embarrassed this family enough. Do not call again until you are ready to stop lying." The line went dead. The call lasted 3 minutes and 58 seconds. That was how long it took to lose my parents. Vanessa texted 20 minutes later. "I'm sorry. I couldn't cover for you anymore." A broken heart emoji followed it. I remember staring at that emoji until my vision blurred. Mara's IV pump beeped behind me. A nurse asked if I was okay. I nodded because people in hospitals ask that question when they do not have time for the real answer. I tried everything. I called my father 14 times in 5 days. The first calls rang. Then they went straight to voicemail. By the 6th call, I was blocked. I emailed my mother the leave approval, the dean's contact information, Mara's treatment schedule with private details blacked out, and a letter explaining everything from the beginning. No answer. I mailed printed copies by certified mail. The envelope came back unopened, returned to sender. My mother's handwriting. I called Aunt Miriam. She was my father's younger sister, and the only relative who had ever asked me questions without using Vanessa as the reference point. She called them. She called me back an hour later, sounding older. "Your father said you chose your path," she said. "Did you tell him about the paperwork?" I did. "And?" "He said Vanessa had already warned him you would produce documents." That was the genius of the lie. Vanessa had not only accused me, she had prepared them to reject my proof. On the 6th day, I stopped calling. Not because I stopped loving them, because I finally understood that my evidence was not competing with Vanessa's lie. It was competing with a lifetime of preference. She had always been easier for them to believe because believing her made them feel like good parents. Mara died in December, early on a Sunday morning, while rain tapped against the hospice window. I was the only person in the room. She had asked me to read to her, not medical material, not something noble. A ridiculous romance novel she had hidden under her pillow because she said dying did not require tasteful literature. Halfway through a sentence, her breathing changed, then it stopped. I sat with her for an hour after the nurse turned off the machines. No one from my family knew. The one person I had told was busy maintaining the story that I had destroyed my own life. After the funeral, I returned to our apartment. Mara's shoes were still by the door. Her orange mug sat in the sink. Her anatomy book lay open on the coffee table, thick with sticky notes. Inside the front cover was a card. "Clara, If you try to quit because I died, I will haunt you and critique your sutures. Finish, become the doctor. Make a life so loud they cannot pretend you disappeared. Love, I cried then, not gracefully, not quietly. I cried on the floor with the card pressed to my chest until my throat hurt. Then I filled out my re-enrollment form. I went back in January. Medical school did not become easier because I had suffered. Exams did not care that my parents had returned my letters. Clinical rotations did not pause because grief made my hands shake in supply closets. I took extra loans. I ate cafeteria leftovers. I tutored first-year students in anatomy for grocery money. I answered questions in class even when my voice trembled because silence had already cost me too much. I graduated on time. Aunt Miriam flew out and brought flowers wrapped in newspaper because the airport shop was closed. No one else came. At commencement, the dean shook my hand and said, "Dr. Bennett," for the first time. The word doctor did not feel like a title yet. It felt like a rope thrown across a canyon. I held it with both hands. After the ceremony, students gathered outside with parents, siblings, balloons, flowers, and the easy noise of families who understood where to stand. I saw fathers adjusting graduation hoods, mothers wiping lipstick from their daughters' cheeks, younger brothers complaining about photos while still smiling for them. Miriam stood beside me with her newspaper flowers and one of those disposable cameras she had bought at a pharmacy. "Smile," she said. "I am smiling." "No, you're trying not to cry." Different face. She made me take pictures anyway. Me holding the diploma. Me with the dean. Me with the statue outside the auditorium. Me with her, both of us squinting into the sun. Later, she mailed copies to my parents. My mother never mentioned them. My father told Miriam not to encourage the fantasy. That phrase became one of the things I kept in a mental drawer marked evidence. Residency was worse than medical school, and better than grief, because it left no room to negotiate with either. I moved east with 2 suitcases, a duffel bag of books, and Mara's card tucked inside my anatomy text. St. Catherine was not gentle. Trauma never is. The first month I slept in call rooms that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. I learned which vending machine accepted bent dollar bills. I learned that some families pray loudly, and some stand in corners making impossible bargains with God. My first attending told me I was too quiet for trauma. Helen Shaw disagreed. She watched me run a resuscitation on a construction worker with a crushed pelvis during my second year. Afterward, while the rest of the team dispersed, she stood beside me at the sink and said, "Quiet isn't the same as timid. You hear the room." No one had ever praised that before. Helen became my proof that mentorship could be precise without being cruel. She corrected my sutures until my fingers ached. She made me present cases twice if I hid behind jargon. She once threw a marker at a wall during a morbidity review and said, "If you are more afraid of looking wrong than being wrong, people die." I loved her immediately and feared her for years. When I told her about my family, it came out accidentally after a holiday shift. A mother had arrived with 3 adult children and a crock-pot of soup for the nurses. I watched them crowd around a recovering patient and felt something in my face slip. Helen noticed because Helen noticed everything. "Office," she said. I sat in the chair across from her desk and tried to give the short version. Sister lied. Parents believed her. I finished anyway. Helen listened without soft noises. When I was done, she said, "People who need a villain will use the nearest quiet person." That's bleak. It's accurate. Now make sure they don't get your future, too. That sentence carried me through more nights than she knows. My parents missed my residency match. They missed my first trauma rotation. They missed the day I removed my first shattered spleen and cried in the stairwell afterward because the patient survived. They missed my wedding. I married Daniel Reyes in a small garden behind my mentor's house. Daniel was a public defender I met at a free clinic where I volunteered during residency. He listened when I told him the whole story. He did not say, "But they're your parents." He did not say, "Maybe Vanessa meant well." He just said, "You should have been believed." Dr. Helen Shaw, my surgical mentor, stood beside me while I pinned my hair. She was 61, blunt, brilliant, and allergic to nonsense. She had trained half the trauma surgeons in the state and scared the other half. "You ready?" she asked. "No." "Good. Marriage is not for people who think they know everything." Daniel's mother walked me halfway down the aisle. Aunt Miriam walked me the rest. I had sent invitations to my parents anyway. Both came back unopened in the same envelope. as if my mother had decided efficiency mattered even in cruelty. Helen saw the returned invitations on my desk the week before the wedding. She said nothing then. After the ceremony, she handed me a sealed hospital envelope. "Nomination materials," she said. "For what?" "Later, go dance with your husband." 5 years passed. I became a person my family did not know how to imagine. There were moments when I almost broke the silence myself. The first time I was published in a surgical journal, I drafted an email to my father with the link attached. I stared at it for 20 minutes, then deleted it. The subject line had been, "Thought you might want to see this." The truth was, I wanted him to want to see it without being invited. When Daniel and I bought the house, my mother was the first person I thought of because she used to circle real estate listings in the Sunday paper. I imagined sending her a photo of the porch. Then I remembered the wedding invitation unopened and set my phone down. On my 30th birthday, Aunt Miriam called while I was walking suture in the rain. "Your mother asked me if you still live in Pennsylvania," she said. "What did you tell her?" "That she could ask you herself." "And?" She changed the subject. That was the pattern. Curiosity without courage. Regret without action. My parents wanted information the way people want weather reports from a country they have no intention of visiting. At 32, I was chief of trauma surgery at St. Catherine Medical Center in Harrisburg, a level 1 trauma center that handled everything from highway wrecks to farm injuries to city violence. My name was on the office door. Residents stood straighter when I entered a room. Nurses trusted my hands. Families cried when I told them someone they loved had survived. At home, Daniel made coffee too strong and sang off key while chopping vegetables. We had a rescue mutt named Suture because the first time Daniel brought him home, he chewed through a pack of practice sutures I had left in my bag. Our house had a porch, 2 mismatched rocking chairs, and a guest room my parents had never seen. I was happy. That did not mean I was unhurt. There is an emptiness that comes from building a life in front of people who refuse to turn their heads. Most days, it stayed quiet. On holidays, it moved through the house and touched everything. I would set 2 extra plates in my mind and then force myself to count only the people who had chosen to be there. Aunt Miriam was my last thread to Lancaster. She called every Sunday. She told me about her garden, her church, the neighbor with the loud motorcycle. Sometimes she slipped in family updates like pills hidden in applesauce. "Your mother still keeps your senior picture in the hallway," she said once. "That doesn't mean anything." "No, but it means something is still there." "Miriam, I know. She also told me about Vanessa. Vanessa divorced. Vanessa moved back closer to my parents. Vanessa took a sales job for a medical device company and began telling relatives she worked alongside surgeons. Vanessa said I had refused all attempts at contact. Vanessa said she had begged me to come home. Vanessa said my parents could not bear to discuss me because I had wounded them too deeply. The lie evolved because lies have to eat. At Thanksgiving, she told cousins I had fallen into a bad crowd during medical school. At Christmas, she told our grandmother I had struggled with substances. At a baby shower, she said she had heard I was moving from job to job because hospitals could not verify my training. Aunt Miriam challenged her when she could. My parents told Miriam to stop reopening wounds. "She built a whole house out of lies," Daniel said one morning after I told him the newest version, "and my parents live in it." 2 years before the accident, Daniel received a call at his office from a friend in hospital administration. Someone using a fake name had called St. Catherine asking whether Dr. Clara Bennett's credentials were valid, whether she had ever been disciplined, whether there were concerns about her training history. The number traced back to Lancaster County, Vanessa. She had not stopped at the first lie. She was searching for proof to make the lie retroactively true. "We can send a cease and desist," Daniel said. "And then what?" "Then she knows we're watching. She wants a reaction. She also wants to damage you." He was right, but I was tired of organizing my life around Vanessa's shadow. My credentials were clean, my work was real, my hospital knew me. So I kept living. Vanessa kept performing. Miriam told me about Christmas dinners where my sister set an empty place in conversation without ever setting one at the table. "Clara always hated being held accountable," she would say, voice soft enough to sound wounded. Or, "We tried to help her, but she wanted a different life." She never gave details until someone asked. Then she gave too many, each one polished by repetition. She told our cousin Beth that I had changed my name to avoid creditors. She told Uncle Paul the first was technically medical adjacent, but not a real doctor. She told my grandmother that I had sent my parents a cruel letter saying I never wanted to see them again. The cruelty of that one stayed with me because my grandmother stopped calling Miriam for updates after that. She thought asking about me would reopen a wound I had supposedly created. What Vanessa understood better than anyone was that my parents did not need much proof if the story protected their pride. If I was unstable, ungrateful, or ashamed, then their silence was not abandonment, it was self-protection. It let my father be stern instead of wrong. It let my mother be heartbroken instead of complicit. That is why the lie lasted. Not because Vanessa was brilliant, because the lie was useful. The truth arrived at 3:12 on a January morning with freezing rain on the windows and Daniel asleep beside me. My pager lit the room. Level 1 trauma. Female, 36. Motor vehicle collision, hypotensive, blunt abdominal trauma. ETA 9 minutes. I dressed before I was fully awake. Trauma lives in muscle memory. Pants, scrub top, clogs, coat. Daniel sat up. Bad one? Looks like it. Drive safe. I kissed his forehead and left. The road shone black under streetlights. At the hospital, I parked crooked and ran through the ambulance bay entrance. The trauma team was already assembling. Charge nurse Priya, 2 residents, anesthesia, blood bank notified, or on standby. I took the intake tablet from Priya. Patient Vanessa Bennett Hayes. Date of birth, July 9th. Emergency contact, Howard Bennett, father. For a moment, the hallway dissolved. I was not the chief surgeon. I was 26 again, standing outside Mara's room with a dead phone in my hand. Priya touched my elbow. Chief? I blinked. Patient is my sister, I said. Document conflict disclosure. Page Dr. Arjun Mehta as backup attending. If I show any compromise in judgment, he takes over. Priya's face changed, but only for a second. Understood. The ambulance doors burst open. Vanessa came in pale, unconscious, intubated, blood soaking through the front of her shirt where the steering wheel had crushed her. The paramedic shouted vitals. Pressure dropping, heart rate high, fast exam positive in the field. 2 large bore Vs running. Possible splenic rupture, liver injury, pelvic fracture. Behind the stretcher came my parents. My mother wore a winter coat over a nightgown, hair uncombed, shoes untied. My father looked smaller than I remembered, but still tried to force the room to obey him. That's my daughter, he shouted. I need the doctor. Where is the surgeon? Priya moved between them and the bay. Family waits outside. The team has her. I want the person in charge. Priya looked through the glass at me. Her eyes flicked to my badge. She understood enough not to say my name. The chief of trauma is here, she said. You will be updated as soon as surgery is underway, my father said. She's all we have. I heard it through the glass. She's all we have. 5 years earlier, that sentence would have hollowed me out. That morning it entered, struck bone, and stopped. I scrubbed alone for 30 seconds longer than usual. In the stainless steel reflection above the sink, my face looked warped by the curve of the metal. Surgeon, daughter, sister, ghost, all of them staring back. I called Dr. Mehta directly. Arjun, it's my sister. Do you want me to take lead? I looked through the small oar window where the team was moving Vanessa onto the table. Not unless I ask or you see a problem, she is crashing. I am the fastest hands in the building. Then I'm beside you. Everything went into the chart. Conflict disclosed. Backup attending present. Nursing witness. No shortcuts. Then I stepped to the table. Vanessa's face was bruised. Her mascara had run into gray lines at her temples. She looked both older and younger than the woman I remembered, stripped of performance by blood loss and anesthesia. For one breath, I hated her. Then she was a patient. Scalpel, I said. The surgery took 4 hours and 12 minutes. Her spleen was destroyed. We removed it. Her liver had a deep laceration that required careful repair. 2 mesenteric vessels were bleeding. We found them, clamped them, tied them off. She needed transfusions. Her pressure dipped twice. A resident's hand shook while holding suction, and I said, "Breathe, Dr. Allen. The body tells you what to do if you stop arguing with it." My hands did not shake. At 7:31 a.m., Vanessa was alive. Dr. Mehta pulled off his gloves and looked at me across the drapes. That was extraordinary. It was necessary. Do you want me to update the family? I looked at the OR doors. No, they asked for the person in charge. The waiting room was too bright. Hospital waiting rooms at dawn always are. They punish grief with fluorescent light. My parents sat side by side. My mother held a rosary I had never seen her use when I needed anything. My father stood when I entered. "Doctor, how is she?" Then he saw my face, then my badge. His jaw slackened. My mother made a sound so small it barely counted as language. I kept my hands folded in front of me. "Vanessa survived. She is stable in the ICU. We removed her spleen and repaired bleeding from her liver and small bowel mesentery. She remains critical, but improved. You can see her after transfer." "Clara," my mother whispered. I did not answer to it. My father stared at me like he was trying to solve an impossible chart. "You're a doctor." "Yes." "You're the chief." "Yes," Vanessa said. He stopped. "Vanessa said a lot." My mother's eyes filled. "We thought you left school." I took approved leave to care for Mara while she was dying. I returned, graduated, completed residency, fellowship, and board certification. The words landed one by one. My father gripped the back of a chair. "You never told us." That was the first crack. Not apology. Defense. I called 14 times in 5 days. I sent 2 emails with documents. I mailed a certified letter. Mom returned it unopened. "Aunt Miriam called you and gave you the dean's number. You hung up on her." My mother's face collapsed. "The letter," she said. "Yes. I thought." She could not finish. "You thought what Vanessa told you to think." My father tried to recover the old authority. "This is not the time." "I agree," I said. "This is a medical update. Vanessa is alive because my team did excellent work. Personal conversations can wait." Behind the glass I could see Priya and one of the residents pretending not to watch. Then Priya stepped in with a chart. "Chief Bennett, the hospital director, called about the night log. He also asked me to remind you that the Physician Leadership Committee needs your gala headshot by noon." My mother's head snapped up. "Gala?" Priya realized too late that she had walked into a minefield. "Sorry, Chief." "It's fine," I said. "I'll send it after rounds." My father looked at me as if every word had become a document proving his own negligence. I turned toward the ICU. "I'll update you when she wakes." 4 hours later, Vanessa opened her eyes. I entered her ICU room for post-op assessment with Priya behind me. Vanessa blinked at the ceiling, then at the IV pole, then at me. Her gaze moved to my badge. "Clara Bennett, MD, Chief of Trauma Surgery." Even through medication, I saw the calculation wake up. "Clara," she rasped. "Good morning, Vanessa. You're at St. Catherine Medical Center. You were in a motor vehicle collision. Surgery went well. You're stable." "You're here?" "I performed the operation." Her mouth trembled. "Listen, I can explain." "Not to me." I checked her drains, listened to her lungs, reviewed her vitals. My parents stood in the hallway outside the glass door, wrecked and waiting. "You owe explanations to them?" When my parents entered, Vanessa cried immediately. Not soft tears, performance tears. Tears that had solved problems for her since childhood. "Mom, Dad, I was scared for her," she said. "I thought if you knew the truth you would fall apart." My father stood at the end of the bed. "The truth being what?" "That she wasn't okay. She's a chief surgeon." "Now she is," Vanessa said quickly. "But then she was unstable. She had this friend and the leave, and I didn't know what was real." My mother gripped the bed rail. "She sent documents." "Documents can be made. Even sedated, even stitched together by my hands." She was reaching for the old architecture. My father said, "Miriam told us she was in residency." "Miriam always liked Clara better." "You told us Miriam was confused." "She was." "You told us Clara was in rehab." Vanessa's eyes flicked toward the nurse. "I said I had heard concerns." "You told your grandmother she was homeless." "I was trying to protect everyone from more pain." My mother's voice rose. "Whose pain?" The monitor beeped faster. Vanessa looked from one parent to the other and found no familiar landing place. "She abandoned us," she said finally. My father answered in a voice I had never heard from him. "We blocked her number because you told us to." Silence. The old Vanessa would have filled it. The woman in the ICU bed could not. Aunt Miriam arrived at 10 that morning with a tote bag and the expression of a woman who had been waiting half a decade for a courtroom. I had called her after surgery, not to weaponize her, because Vanessa was her niece too, and because Miriam deserved the truth in real time for once. She walked into the ICU room, kissed my forehead, ignored my parents' stunned faces, and set her tote bag on the counter. "I brought paper," she said. My father looked exhausted. "Miriam, not now. Now is exactly when." She pulled out a folder. Inside were printed copies of the emails I had sent. the leave approval from Pacific Northwest College of Medicine, my re-enrollment confirmation, a photo of me at graduation with Miriam holding flowers, a copy of the wedding invitation returned unopened, screenshots of Vanessa's messages to relatives. Miriam handed the first page to my mother. This is Clara's approved leave, signed by the dean, dated before Vanessa called you. My mother held the paper with both hands. Miriam handed my father another. This is the email Clara sent you with the same document attached. He stared at the date. And this, Miriam said, pulling up a screenshot on her phone, is Vanessa texting me 4 years ago. Do not tell Mom and Dad about Clara's residency. They are finally healing. My mother made a sound like something tearing. Miriam was not finished. This one says Clara refused to invite you to the wedding. That was a lie. She sent invitations. Elaine mailed them back. I saw the envelope. My father sank into a chair. Vanessa stared at the ceiling. Miriam, she whispered, why are you doing this? Miriam looked at her. Because you did it first. No one spoke for a long time. My mother read the emails one by one. Her lips moved over sentences I had written at 26 with trembling hands. Mom, please call the dean. Dad, please listen. Mara is dying. I am not lying. I still want you in my life. Then she reached the email I sent before my residency graduation. I know you may not come. I know you may never answer. But I graduate tomorrow. I wish you could see me become the doctor I said I would be. I am still your daughter. My mother folded forward in the chair and sobbed without sound. My father walked to the window and put one hand against the glass. His shoulders shook once, then again. Miriam told me later she had never seen him cry before. He turned back after several minutes and looked at Vanessa. Why? Vanessa did not answer. For once, there was no version that would save her. Miriam turned then, not to Vanessa, but to my parents. You two need to understand something, she said. Vanessa lit the match, yes, but you kept handing her paper. My father looked up sharply. Miriam, no, I am done being polite about this. Clara sent you documents. She gave you names, dates, phone numbers. You did not call one dean, one hospital, one roommate, one relative who might have known the truth. You wanted the story finished because the story made you angry instead of ashamed. My mother pressed the leave form to her chest. I thought if we answered, we were rewarding the lie. You rewarded the lie by refusing to test it. Miriam's voice did not rise. That made it worse. She sounded like a nurse reading vitals after the patient had already died. And Howard, she said, you have always treated changing your mind like losing. So when you made the wrong call, you defended it until it cost you your daughter. My father closed his eyes. Vanessa whispered, Aunt Miriam, please. Miriam looked at her. You stole grief you had not earned. You let your parents mourn a living child while you stood beside them pretending to be loyal. I love you. I do. But love does not require me to help you hide anymore. That was when Vanessa cried for real. I know because performance tears look outward. These did not. She turned her face toward the pillow, and the sound that came out of her had no audience in it. I stood in the hallway listening because I had come back to check her drainage and stopped outside the door when I heard Miriam's voice. Part of me felt like a coward for not walking in. Another part of me knew the room needed to collapse without me holding up the ceiling. Priya came to stand beside me. You don't have to go in, she said quietly. She's my patient. Then be her doctor in 5 minutes. I looked at Priya then, this nurse who had met me only as Dr. Bennett, not as the girl with returned letters. Thank you. For what? Knowing there is a difference. She nodded once and stood guard at the door until I was ready. At the end of my shift, 22 hours after the pager woke me, I returned to Vanessa's room. My parents were still there. They looked like people who had survived a house fire and were only beginning to realize what had burned. My mother stood. Clara, baby? I raised one hand. She stopped. I believe you're sorry, I said. But sorry is not a repair, it is an opening statement. My father swallowed. We want to make this right. Then understand this first. I am not the girl who begged from 3,000 miles away while you sent her letters back. I am not waiting to be believed anymore. I have a husband, a home, a career, a family I built. If you want access to my life, it will be on my terms. My mother nodded, crying. My father opened his mouth. The old him wanted to argue. I watched him fight it and lose for the better. Your terms, he said. There is one more thing, I said. Both of them looked at me. Do not make me responsible for comforting you about what you did. I cannot be the injured person and the nurse for your guilt at the same time. My mother looked down. I understand. You will want to call every day. You will want to explain, apologize, send gifts, ask for dinner, ask for holidays, ask for photos, ask for what you missed. Don't. Write things down, take him to therapy. Ask me once, and if I say no, accept no. My father swallowed. That sounds like a contract. It is a boundary. Contracts are just boundaries people respect because lawyers are involved. For half a second, something like humor moved across his face and vanished. Maybe in another life, if he had listened sooner, we might have known how to laugh together. I looked at Vanessa. When you recover, we will talk. Not here, not while you're my patient. She turned her face toward the window. Clara. You are alive, I said. That is all I owe this room today. 2 weeks later, Vanessa was discharged. I chose a coffee shop halfway between her apartment and my house. Daniel sat at another table near the window, with legal briefs spread out in front of him. He did not need to be obvious to be present. Vanessa arrived slowly, one hand near her incision. She had lost weight. Her hair was tied back with none of its usual care. Without makeup, without an audience, she looked less like my older sister and more like a woman who had finally run out of roles. She sat down. I'm sorry, she said. I know, her face flinched. That's it? Sorry is where people begin when they don't know how to say the truth yet. She looked at her coffee. I was jealous. I waited. When you got into medical school, Mom looked at you like... She stopped. Like she used to look at me. Dad too. I know that sounds ugly. It is ugly. I felt erased. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. So you erased me first. She covered her mouth. Yes. That was the first honest answer Vanessa had given me in years. Did you call my school and try to get my leave revoked? Her eyes closed. Yes. Did you contact hospitals later trying to damage my credentials? Yes. Daniel's pen stopped moving at the other table. I breathed once. Twice. You understand that what you did could have ended my career before it began. I know. No, Vanessa. You know because it failed. I need you to know what you attempted. She cried then, quietly. I did not comfort her. Here are my conditions, I said. You will send a written correction to every relative you lied to. Not vague, not emotional, facts. You will say I did not drop out. You will say I took approved leave to care for Mara. You will say I returned, graduated, and became a surgeon. You will say you lied and maintained that lie for 5 years. She nodded. Aunt Miriam gets the email list. Daniel reviews the wording. Okay. You will not contact my hospital, my staff, my licensing board, or any employer under any name for any reason. Okay, and you will get therapy. She looked up. I already made an appointment. Good. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I looked at the sister who had taken 5 years from me and the patient whose blood had covered my gloves. I don't know. Ask me with your actions in a few years. My parents came to my house the following Sunday. Not inside, not yet. We sat on the porch with coats on and coffee going cold between us. Daniel stayed in the kitchen. Suture sat pressed against my leg like a furry bailiff. My mother brought a folder. Inside were the unopened pieces of my life she had kept without admitting it. A residency announcement Miriam had sent. A newspaper clipping about St. Catherine's trauma program with my name highlighted. A photo printed from the hospital website. I watched from far away, she said. That makes it worse, not better. Yes, I said, it does. My father stared into his coffee. I believed Vanessa because it was easier than believing I had failed you. That sentence did more than any apology he had offered. And because you were angry, I said, yes. You thought if you changed your mind, you would have to admit you were wrong. His jaw tightened, then released. Yes. My mother reached for my hand and stopped halfway, asking without words. I let her take it, for a minute. If you want to rebuild, I said, you go to family counseling, both of you, not once, not for show. You learn why you believe the worst about me so fast. My father looked away. We don't usually. I know what you usually do. It cost us 5 years. My mother said, we'll go. My father nodded after a long moment. We'll go. My parents kept that promise, which surprised me more than the apology. The first appointment happened on a Tuesday evening. My mother texted afterward, not to summarize, not to ask for praise, just to say, we went. I did not answer until the next morning. I wrote, good. That was all either of us could handle. By the fourth session, Dr. Stein had given them an assignment. They had to write a timeline of every moment when they could have checked the truth and chose not to. My mother said it took 3 pages. My father said nothing about it, but Miriam told me he sat in his truck for 20 minutes after the appointment before driving home. The timeline included the first phone call, the emails, the certified letter, Miriam's warning, my graduation announcement, the wedding invitation, the newspaper article about St. Catherine's trauma department, the hospital website profile, and the fake credential inquiry Daniel had traced. There were so many doors, my mother said during one porch visit weeks later. Yes, we closed them. Yes, she cried quietly into her sleeve. This time, I did not tell her it was okay. It was not okay. The difference was that she did not ask me to make it okay. 1 month later, the hospital held its winter physician recognition gala. 200 people filled the ballroom of the Lancaster Grand Hotel. Surgeons, nurses, donors, administrators, residents wearing dresses they would change out of before overnight shift. I wore a black dress Daniel picked because he said it made me look like I might either accept an award or cross-examine someone. Helen Shaw sat at the front table, arms folded, smug in the way only mentors can be when their secret nomination becomes public. The chief medical officer stepped to the podium. This year's Physician of the Year is a surgeon whose composure under extreme pressure, clinical excellence, and devotion to patient care represent the best of this institution, Dr. Clara Bennett. The room stood. My team cheered loudest. Priya wiped her eyes and pretended not to. Dr. Mehta whistled with 2 fingers. Daniel stood at the front table, smiling in a way that made the room blur. I walked to the podium. 5 years ago, I said, I almost did not come back to medicine. Not because I lacked the ability, but because grief and silence can convince a person they are alone. I am here because people who were not required to love me chose to stand beside me anyway. I looked at Helen, at Miriam, at Daniel. Then I looked toward the last row. My parents sat there. Miriam had arranged it without telling me. My mother wore a navy dress and held a tissue in both hands. My father sat stiffly in a suit that looked uncomfortable on him. They were not in the front, they had not earned the front, but they were there. Sometimes family is built by choice, I said, and sometimes the family that failed you begins the work of showing up late, humbly, and without demanding the seat they abandoned. My mother covered her mouth. My father bowed his head. I finished the speech without crying, barely. Afterward, my father found Daniel near the coat check. I should have walked her down the aisle, he said. Daniel looked at him carefully. Yes, he said, you should have. My father nodded as if accepting a sentence. Thank you for doing what I didn't. My mother did, Daniel said. I just married her. For the first time, my father laughed and cried at the same time. Helen found me afterward near the dessert table, where I was hiding because being celebrated exhausts me faster than surgery. You did well, she said. I hate public speaking. Everyone with sense does. She handed me a glass of water. Your parents came. Miriam arranged it, and you allowed it. I watched my father across the room. He was speaking to Daniel with the careful posture of a man learning a new language. My mother stood beside Aunt Miriam, nodding while Miriam said something that looked stern from across the ballroom. I don't know if allowing it was the right choice. Helen followed my gaze. Right is sometimes too simple a word. Was it yours? Yes. Then start there. That was Helen's gift. She never turned pain into a greeting card. She gave me tools sharp enough to use. Vanessa sent the family email on a Wednesday night. It was not poetic. Daniel made sure of that. She wrote that I did not drop out of medical school. She wrote that I had taken an approved caregiver leave. She wrote that she had fabricated stories about a boyfriend, drugs, homelessness, and estrangement. She wrote that she had encouraged our parents to block me and reject my evidence. She wrote that I had continued trying to reach them and that she had spent years preventing the truth from coming out. The final line read, Clara did not abandon this family. I made people believe she did because I was afraid of being less important. 43 relatives received it. Responses came slowly. A cousin apologized for repeating the rehab rumor. An uncle wrote, I don't know what to say except I am ashamed I believed it. My grandmother, 90 years old and sharper than most of them, called me directly. I should have asked you, she said. You were lied to. Old is not the same as helpless. I should have asked. I loved her for that. The email also reached people I had not thought about in years. My high school biology teacher wrote through Miriam to say she had followed my career from a distance, and always wondered why my parents never came to alumni events where I was mentioned. A cousin in Ohio sent a photo from the state science fair when I was 13. In the picture, I stood alone with my second-place ribbon, shoulders hunched, smiling too carefully. I had forgotten anyone took that photo. I saved it. Not because it was happy, because it proved the girl existed. She had stood on stages alone before she ever stood in operating rooms. She had learned early how to hold achievement without applause. I wished I could reach through the picture and tell her that one day, applause would come, but it would not be the thing that saved her. Her own stubbornness would. No one announced Vanessa's punishment. There was no dramatic exile, no family meeting with raised hands and verdicts. People simply stopped accepting her version of events without proof. For Vanessa, that was its own sentence. My parents started counseling in February with a therapist named Dr. Laura Stein, who had no patience for family myths. Aunt Miriam told me my father tried to explain that he had been misled, and Dr. Stein asked, "What part of you wanted to be misled?" He did not enjoy that. He kept going. My mother wrote me a letter after the third session. I chose peace over fairness so many times that I forgot fairness was my job as your mother. I let your father's pride and Vanessa's tears decide what was true. I saw you waiting in doorways and told myself you preferred being alone. That was cowardice. I am sorry for the years I helped steal. I read the letter at my kitchen table with Suture asleep on my feet. Then I placed it in a drawer with Mara's card, the returned wedding invitation, and the residency email my parents never answered. Same drawer, different side. Progress does not always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like sorting the evidence of your life into what harmed you and what might help you heal. Vanessa and I met for coffee 3 more times that spring. The first was stiff. The second was worse because she tried to explain too much and I told her explanations were not restitution. The third was quiet. "I don't know who I am if I'm not the one they believe," she said. "Then find out without using me as the cost." She nodded. I still do not know whether Vanessa will become someone I can trust. I know she is trying. I know trying after harm does not erase harm. I know I can leave the door closed as long as I need. There is a scar on her abdomen now, a pale line under her ribs where my hands opened her body and closed it again. She will carry that mark for the rest of her life. Every mirror will remind her that the sister she erased chose the oath over revenge. I carry scars too. Mine are not visible, but they ache at strange times. When a mother kisses a daughter in the surgical waiting room, when someone says family always shows up, when an envelope arrives in my mother's handwriting and I have to breathe before opening it. The difference is that my scars no longer tell me I am unloved, they tell me I survived. On the first Sunday in March, my parents came for breakfast. It was snowing lightly, the kind that melts the moment it touches the porch rail. Daniel made coffee. I made French toast because it gave my hands something to do. Suture sat under the table, optimistic about gravity. The doorbell rang at 9. My mother stood on the porch holding a container of cinnamon rolls. She looked terrified. My father held orange juice like it was a peace offering from a country that had not learned the local language. "Hi," my mother said. "Come in," I said. "Coffee's ready." My father stepped into my kitchen for the first time. He looked at the photos on the wall, wedding, graduation, Daniel and me at the beach, Aunt Miriam in a ridiculous hat, Helen Shaw holding a barbecue fork like a weapon. He paused at the wedding photo. "You looked beautiful," he said. I kept flipping toast. "I was." He absorbed that answer. "Can I help?" I looked at him. Howard Bennett, 63 years old, standing in my kitchen asking to be useful instead of in charge. "Set the table," I said. He opened the cabinet I pointed to and took down plates. He counted them. 4? 4. He set them out carefully. My mother hugged me near the stove. Not the dramatic sobbing hug she had tried in the waiting room. A quiet one. Brief. Asking permission with every inch. I let it last. Breakfast was awkward. It was also real. My father asked Daniel about work and listened to the answer. My mother asked about the hospital and did not mention Vanessa until I did. No one pretended the past had vanished because we had syrup and snow and 4 plates on a table. After they left, my mother texted, "Thank you for breakfast." No hearts, no dramatic apology, no request for next Sunday. Just one sentence that did not try to take more than I had offered. That mattered. My father sent his own message an hour later. I set the plates in the wrong cabinet. I noticed after. Sorry. I stared at it longer than necessary. It was not about plates. It was about a man who had spent his life assuming he knew where everything belonged, admitting he had put something in the wrong place and noticed after. I wrote back, "Top left next time." He replied, "I will remember." Maybe he meant the cabinet, maybe he meant more. Either way, it was the kind of small, boring exchange I had wanted my whole life. No performance, no crisis, no courtroom of relatives, just a father learning where the plates go in his daughter's kitchen. After they left, Daniel washed dishes while I stood by the window. "How do you feel?" he asked. I watched my parents walk carefully down the snowy steps. Like a door opened and I didn't disappear. He dried his hands and came to stand beside me. "That's good. It's a start. My name is Dr. Clara Bennett. I am 32 years old. I saved my sister's life in an operating room before I decided whether I wanted her in mine. I let my parents into my kitchen before I knew if I could let them back into my heart. I am not the daughter they lost. I am the woman who survived being lost. The truth took 5 years to arrive. When it did, it came through hospital doors on a stretcher, covered in blood, asking me to choose who I was. I chose the oath. I chose my own terms. And for the first time, my family had to